What if I told you that everything that you thought you knew about shadow work and the way that you're doing it is wrong? Here's the thing. Most people dive in without any type of plan or understanding on how to do it and just end up digging up all this trauma, all these wounds, and mistaking this pain for progress. But really, they're just lost running in circles in the dark. Real transformation isn't about suffering, it's about integration. So if this sounds like you, go ahead and stick around because we're going to be talking all about shadow work today. Welcome to the Path of the Dark Goddess. I am Serena Scarlet Fatale. I'm a trauma-informed shadow work guide, chaos switch, and priestess of the Dark Goddess. Today, I'm going to be breaking down everything that you need to know about shadow work, why it's essential, and how to get started without feeling lost or overwhelmed. Now, really quick, here's the thing. If you're really tired of spiritual bypassing and superficial advice from gaslight workers, get it? Because light workers, but they gaslight you. Anyways, this video and my channel is just for you. So go ahead and subscribe and like, and let's get going on in. So what is shadow work really? Well, shadow work was originally defined by Carl Jung, a Swiss psychoanalyst who was known for exploring the unconscious. He's actually considered one of the grandfathers of psychology, specifically psychoanalysis. Now, here's the thing. Carl Jung described the shadow as the hidden unconscious parts of our personality that we don't consciously recognize or accept. But I want to tell you something really powerful about your shadow. It isn't just the darkness or the negativity or your trauma. It's also where your hidden potential lives, like qualities like your creativity, your confidence, and your power that you were told to repress because they weren't socially acceptable. So how is your shadow formed? Well, your shadow is oftentimes, for the most part, created in your childhood, shaped by experiences, society, and family dynamics. It's said that the first 7 years of your life are the foundation and building blocks of who you are and how your life is going to be. Is the most pivotal part for one's emotional, mental, as well as physical development. But today it's more of the mental and emotional. So here's the thing. Imagine being told as a child to stop crying, or that anger is bad, or that expressing your truth is unacceptable. And each time this happened to you, you had to learn how to hide these aspects, how to suppress them. And what they ended up doing was going straight into your shadow. So really quick, I do just want to clarify, parts of your shadow can also be formed through other experiences as well, like traumatic experiences, unresolved emotions. If you were in like an abusive relationship or a toxic relationship that you weren't able to process correctly, that can also be part of your shadow as well. But most of your shadow, for the most part, is really something that was shaped in your childhood. So how does your shadow control you? Well, when you ignore the shadow, these repressed traits, they don't just disappear. They end up influencing your life unconsciously and often manifest in repeating painful relationship patterns. They can show up in self-sabotaging behaviors like procrastination, avoidance, perfectionism, or they could show up with sudden emotional outbursts and feeling very triggered frequently. So, in short, your shadow silently shapes your decisions, your beliefs, your actions, your relationships, almost everything about you. But the thing is, it often leaves you feeling and wondering why you can't just break free out of all these patterns. Shadow work is about reclaiming the whole of who you are and not just the pretty parts. Why do you even need shadow work? Especially if it ends up being so challenging and complicating and digging up all these wounds and all these traumas and all these unresolved things and fucks up your nervous system. You do it because it gives you your power back. Shadow work offers you freedom from self-destructive habits and toxic relationships. It gives you authenticity, allowing you to show up in life exactly as you are without any masks or fear. You have empowered relationships with clearer and stronger boundaries, deeper connections, and the ability to have genuine intimacy. And lastly, personal power, the courage to speak your truth, to follow your desires, and express yourself completely and fully. Because when you integrate your shadow, you stop running from these parts of yourself. Instead, you become whole, real, and powerful. And you move away from that feeling of broken and fragmentation to feeling complete, empowered, and, well, whole. So, we're going to talk about some just common shadow work myths. Shadow work is just all about journaling, the first one. Journaling's great. There's amazing shadow work journals out there. I'm not against it. But it's more than just that. Shadow work involves your body, your emotions, your nervous system, and your soul. Journaling is great, but it also requires nervous system regulation, somatic exercises, emotional expression, and deep, deep reflection. And if you're someone like me, rituals. Myth number 2, shadow work is a one-time thing. It's an ongoing journey. Your shadow reveals itself in layers, and each life experience and each time you go into a layer, it ends up creating a deeper healing. And the more engaged, the richer the process becomes. Myth number 3, shadow work is dangerous. Ignoring your shadow, in my opinion, is far more dangerous because it creates those unconscious patterns and emotional turmoil. However, because our shadow can bring up trauma, it can bring up repressed memories, it can bring up a lot of stuff. And so approaching shadow work from a trauma-informed, regulated, and safe approach is ideal, especially if you're someone who you're like, you got a lot going on and like it's going to bring up a lot. There are ways that you can do it safely. I don't ever want to discourage people from not doing shadow work, but sometimes maybe you need to wait. Sometimes you need to put a pause on it. Sometimes you need a trauma-informed therapist or a shadow work practitioner to help you through this. But at the end of the day, doing shadow work, it can lead to, especially when you do it properly, can lead to emotional freedom, empowerment, and self-acceptance. Don't let these myths and all this bullshit keep you from reclaiming your power. So how do you start shadow work? Well, we're going to just break down a couple things because it's really about safety. The first one is creating inner safety. Because shadow work requires a lot of emotional and nervous system safety. Before diving into deep emotional work, making sure that you are in a very grounded space, that you have strong self-care rituals, that you have some type of understanding of how to regulate yourself through somatic practices, breath work, grounding meditations, gentle movement, and all sorts of stuff, and also getting into the routine of practicing, daily grounding rituals, daily breath work, and having that stuff going because you want to create and make sure that your nervous system has kind of already created like a safety point. And you know how to pull yourself back into that grounded, into that safety point, which I'll be talking about in other videos. But you want to make sure you know how to do that and that you are more regulated than dysregulated and that you know how to process and deal with things and bring yourself back down to that state for when it happens. So just really just building those habits and getting yourself into a more grounded state. It's like the hierarchy of needs. Like you need to make sure that you're in a relatively okay place. If you're struggling with like hardcore addiction, if you're homeless, if you can't get those basic needs met, your nervous system is going to be out of whack and you might need to wait until you get that. Trauma-informed therapists should do this as well. So the second thing, once you kind of get that inner safety and you have like rituals and you have routines and you have that understanding of how that stuff works, you're going to want to learn and know your triggers, your emotional roadmap. So emotional triggers, they really aren't random. They're often windows to your shadow. And if something irritates you or angers you or hurts you deeply, you might need to pause. There could be an emotional reaction. And not saying, some real life situations, you have the right to be angry or irritated or hurt. But even just taking that time to reflect of like, is this, triggering something, or is this just like me having a normal reaction to a shitty situation? But learning what those triggers are and how they can affect you, like if you have like unresolved anger and frustration, like getting irritated, you could go from 0 to 10. You might be taking your anger out on people who don't deserve it. There's a shadow there that you need to work through. So your triggers really reveal parts of yourself that you've rejected or these wounds that haven't healed. And so starting to learn what your triggers are. How does it feel within your body? What is the emotion underneath it? And just kind of pausing and starting to get into that awareness of like what's really going on under the surface. What am I feeling? And then starting to learn how to explore gently. Have I felt this way before? Is this unresolved? Like, is this scraping open a wound? Like, what's underneath this emotion? All right, number 3, beginning small and staying persistent. Consistency really does matter more than intensity, and it's better to do 5 to 10 minutes of shadow work daily and kind of just dive in. Sometimes you need to do like really intense sessions, and I'm totally here for that, but sometimes you might just need to kind of slowly start chipping away at it. If you have a journal, a couple questions a day, and like I said, that daily trigger journaling of like writing down your emotions and your reflections, getting into some like brief meditations where you're doing like body scans, tapping into your emotions, seeing what's going on, and things of that nature. Sometimes keeping it simple and consistent is better. And over time, as you start to creating these daily rituals, you can create even bigger transformative things. Now, sometimes you got to go deep. Sometimes you have to have an intense session, but you know what? When you're first starting, start simple, and what it is you're doing is you're preparing yourself from those deeper dives into the underworld, into your shadow. So shadow work really isn't as complicated. It just requires consistency, courage, and also self-awareness. So here's the thing. Shadow work can be intense. It can be deep, but I just want to let you know that you don't have to do it alone. On this channel, there's going to be ongoing guidance. I'm going to be talking about witchcraft, rituals, compassionate support. So go ahead and subscribe now so that we can do this powerful work together. And also, I have a Patreon. So if you want to check out my Patreon where I take you through a lot of really awesome stuff, click the link in my bio or in the comments. But other than that, what brought you here? What's your biggest shadow work question? I'm listening and I'll answer. But just a friendly reminder that your shadow isn't darkness. It's your greatest potential. So let's reclaim it together. Have a great day.